Hello, hello. Let me just turn that down. Hello, welcome everyone to another stream. 2 streams in 1 week. Not expected. Wanted to make it a bit of a surprise for everyone. I know that everyone has been demanding more content, so I had some time, and I figured might as well get on the stream and see if we can discuss some more. I know that you guys are lore heavy, and I really wanted to give all the lore some justice, because if we did it once a week, there would be no way you could experience all of the lore. So I think every now and then, if I have the time, I find the time in my schedule, I will set some time aside to do some lore streams with you. So we'll give people some time to jump in and get involved. And yeah, I'm really excited to go over some stuff with you guys today. If you can hear me and it's all clear, please let me know in the chat. I would really appreciate that. There'll be a few things that I'm doing today, so I want to apologize for any tech issues that come up, but tech issues are always going to be something that happens during streams. So what I'll say is I'll give us maybe 2 minutes and then we'll get started. But how's everyone doing? You know, how is everyone's day been? It is nice Thursday. It's been quite sunny here, so not too bad. I'll turn the music down just a tad. Okay. It is, yeah, it's looking like a really nice week, to be honest. Managed to get a lot of stuff done post stream that we did on Tuesday. So I think I'm about 50% of the way through with paths at the minute. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, I can show them off relatively soon to everyone, so you can see how they're going to work alongside the subclasses. I think we found a really good solution, and I've been designing some really nice stuff for them. So yeah. I'm at work and there is a chat coming nearby, but other than that, I'm great. I am really sorry to hear that. I hope that the chat coming isn't too loud and you can still hear this. But yeah, should be good. Okay, so that is that. I think that is everyone who's going to jump in at this point. You know, people can catch the VOD later. So I believe it's a better time than any to get started. Okay. So here we go. There are precious few events that altered the world so completely as a calamity named as the Night of Fire. Yet to understand what happened, we must first look back, past ash and ruin, to the bond that defined an age. These are the events of Dragonfall. Dragons were not distant idols, nor mute forces of nature. They were the living embodiments of a paradox, creatures created by Valathar, the Light Mother of Creation, and marked by Xertius, the Night Father of Destruction. They are spirit and body bound into one. They are the nature that was dual, and in that duality laid both wonder and danger. For centuries they were the apex of Azeroth, counselors, guardians, power, and to many even kin, moving alongside mortals and shaping the course of kingdoms. The relationship between dragons and Rider was not imagined, but made, tested in storms, in silence, in everything that it could be. A rider trusted the scale and the breath, a dragon trusted the hand and the voice. To common folk, their passing was a herald, a hush before a wingbeat, the thunder after it. Songs rose to meet them, cities stood taller than shadow of their protection. In those years it could be believed that the pact would endure as surely as mountain and sea. But beneath that confidence, the oldest wound of the world whispered. Azeroth itself was born from fracture and balance, a world carved by opposing divinities, a magic divided into differing aspects, an age set on the fulcrum between making and unmaking. Dragons carried that in their blood. They were the heirs of creation's light and destruction's hunger. They were the storm and the stillness, and, as some would argue later, no vessel could hold such tensions forever. Even the greatest convulsions of earlier centuries did not break the bond. The titanic war of sky and earth, as the scholars call Lofstio, saw dragons and giants scar the mountains. But when the dust settled, a hard truce called the final embers. Dragonkind still flew, and riders still answered when the world called. The age endured with wing and word, oath and trust. This is the world that Dragonfall entered. Not a world naive to conflict, but a world that had come to believe that however violent the storm, a bond would hold. Their belief would make the breaking all that more terrible. From here, we descend into 400 BBI, before the Battle of Ilatos, the year preserved in every chronicle as a turning point, where dragons turned upon their riders, their kin, and finally themselves, when broods fell from the sky and silence ran upon the ranges. But the silence is only comprehensible if we remember the fullness that came before. Some name it a curse, others a divine wrath, but no account disputes the terror of what transpired. The dragons of Akaroth turned on their riders, their kin, and themselves. This was an era of chaos and slaughter. The event struck with no warning. There were no omens, nor prophecies, no signs from the heavens. Villages that had lived under the wings of guardians suddenly found themselves running from those same wings. They were blotting out the moon in fury. Riders who had shared dreams and blood with their companions were now consumed by their fires, and whole broods tore themselves apart in the sky, their voices drowned out by the sound of their own destruction. Records yet sparse, many can be seen seeing that the flames destroyed them, others twisted by centuries of retelling, stories handed down from family to family. But fragments remain. Many chroniclers speak of dragons who, in their frenzy, destroyed not only cities of men, but their own nesting grounds. Others describing riders forced to draw steel against the very creature they had sworn their lives to, a bond breaking as claw and fang closed upon them. What began as a madness in the skies spread across the land. Crops were burned, keeps crumbled, even mountain holds, once thought impregnable, fell as dragonfire cut through stone as easily as flesh. This was not a war between nations, not a war between gods, but between life and its own reflection. When the dawn came, the silence reignited. The broods were gone, many were slain, others vanished. Eggs hardened into stone, their fires extinguished into cold shells, and in a single night, dragonkind passed from living power to a lingering myth. Their numbers dwindled so severely that extinction seemed assured. This was the weight of Dragonfall. It was not only the destruction of creatures, but the unmaking of trust itself. A bond between dragon and rider, once the most sacred, had been severed. And in its place was fear. Fear that such betrayal may rise again, that no covenant, however strong, was beyond collapse. And so it was that the Night of Fire passed into history. No victor claimed it. No god descended to explain it. Only ruin remained. And the world was left to wonder whether it was a curse, madness, or divine judgment that had hollowed its skies so severely. The temples preached judgment. The following of C4, the god of sun and justice, saw Dragonfall as a punishment. But within those centuries since, no question has haunted Azeroth more than why. Why did the dragons turn? Why did their bonds older than kingdoms break in a single night? Why did the skies themselves betray their charge? Theories were abound, but no one could agree. In the silence left by Dragonfall, mortals, fae, and scholars have filled the void with explanation, belief, and fear. They all argued that dragons had stayed far too long in the mortal affairs, fighting wars that were not their own, lending fire to causes unworthy. And Xertius, the Night Father, is often named the hand that struck, for he balanced creation with shadow, and so severing this bond that he had seen grow too close, too dangerous, sees Dragonfall not as a madness, but as a correction. The archivists of great libraries tend to disagree with this. In their records, the fall was not born of the gods, but inevitable. Dragons were always the creatures of paradox, they say, that light and shadow bound into one form. Creation and destruction were married into a single soul. No vessel, they claim, could hold such tension forever. What mortals called loyalty was only a fragile balance, destined to collapse beneath its own weight. Dragonfall, in this view, was the natural breaking of an unnatural harmony. Among the Fae, another account is preserved. To them, Dragonfall is not remembered as betrayal, but as a fracturing. In their telling, the event was less about divine wrath or mortal fault, and more about the spirit itself unraveling. The soul of a dragon, carrying both the Light Mother and the Night Father within, was never meant to endure without tearing. Their accounts seem to agree with the great archivists, the great scholars of the land. And they say that what the mortals witnessed that day was not treachery, but was normal, was seen to have happened, was to be expected beyond anything. This was the truth of bonding with dragons. Yet, other traditions still whisper darker truths. Some speak of curses seeded in ages past, remnants of the betrayal when dragons first warred amongst themselves. Others claim it that mortals themselves are to blame, that riders, in binding too closely, brought this upon themselves, drew the fire into themselves, and poisoned what had once been pure. No single account rests in the silence, each explanation carrying its own weight, shaped by fear, by faith, or philosophy. And so the mystery remains unsolved. Dragonfall was a curse, a judgment, a madness, a fracture, perhaps all of these, or perhaps none. But what is certain is no scholar, no priest, no voice beyond the realm has ever pierced the silence left in its wake. When dawn broke after the night of fire, the world was not the same. The skies were empty. The wings that once brought shelter and song were gone, leaving only silence and smoke. Though a covenant thought eternal, what remained here was ruin, a long shadow of loss. The broods were shattered, many had torn themselves apart in frenzy, claw against claw, fire against fire, while others lay dead beside their riders, their bonds severed in nothing more than blood. A whole nesting ground destroyed, and with them the future of dragonkind. Where once the air rang with their voices, now there was nothing. The eggs too bore the mark of this fall. Those that survived were hardened to stone, petrified, their fires extinguished, their shells turned to fossils. To later generations they would seem like relics, cold monuments to an age thought forever lost. But for mortals, the aftermath was no less severe. Villages awoke from the ash where homes had stood, families buried empty grave where their kin had been consumed, vanished in the flames, and kingdoms that had relied upon Dragonfire for their defense were now left exposed, their borders suddenly fragile. Fear spread faster than any army. If even dragons could betray, then who could be trusted? The silence that followed was perhaps the most profound wound. Generations grew up knowing that these beasts, these dragons, were never freed of the shadows that pass overhead. And in time, the bond between dragon and rider was nothing more than a myth, nothing more than a legend. What had once been a daily life became stuff of half-remembered tales and fading songs. But by the reckoning of sages, this was extinction in all but name. Dragonkind, once the living pillars of Azeroth, were reduced to whispers in libraries and shadows in dreams. The Age of Dragons was over, not with a war, not with anything, but a single night of chaos that unmade the sky itself. Dragonfall had no victor, no crown, no new empire born from its ashes. It only left absence. And absence, more than fire or claw, would haunt the centuries that followed. Dragonfall ended the Age of Dragons, but it did not erase their memories. In fact, the absence only deepened the presence in the minds of mortals. The fall became more than a history, it became warning, prophecy, and fear. The petrified eggs were scattered across Azeroth. Some found them, believing them to be ancient relics, while others kept them bonded and kept them as a reminder of something that had been lost. That even the mightiest could fall. And few believed they would stir again. They were studied, hoarded, worshipped, sold, but never trusted. And yet, in the New Age, whispers began. Some of these fossilized shells began to crack. Inside, life still lingered. Dragons, against all expectation, were reborn into a world that no longer knew how to receive them. This return was no simple revival. Every new rider who reached toward a dragon did so with the weight of history upon their hand. Against everything, they knew the stories of that night. They had heard the accounts of fire without reason, of broods annihilated in frenzy, and they looked forth to grow up under a silence of empty skies. But now to bond again, this was not naive trust, this was defiance, a choice made with full knowledge of what had once been lost. For many, this was a folly, an invitation that history must repeat itself. For others, this was the highest of courage, to look into the eyes of a dragon, knowing that even gods can betray and yet still dare to trust. Many theologians argued, was the return of dragons a gift? Was it a test brought down by the gods? Did Valathar restore what Xerxes had struck down, or was it merely the next turn in their eternal cycle of light and shadow? Scholars warned of the reoccurrence that had happened and perhaps may happen once again, yet riders climbed into the sky. This is the legacy of Dragonfall. Not only the memory of loss, but the choice that follows it. To fear, to trust, to remember, to hope. For every hand laid upon scale today, the shadow of that night stretches beneath it. The skies of Azeroth have opened again, but beneath them, they also open the memory of the night that they fell. And there we are. Sorry, I was doing that live, so I was trying to get all the sort of like dials and buttons correct so that it could look quite good. But that was Dragonfall. I wrote all of that for you guys to listen to. I'll split it up into another video so that anyone who just wants to listen to it can have a direct copy. So yeah. I don't know if you heard, but my dog started barking in the background during part of that. So I'm so sorry for that. Yeah, I'm hoping that it went over well for everyone, and it gave you a bit of understanding into what Dragonfall is. This was the event that essentially started, well, that you guys will sort of come into. While it happened 400 years ago, or more than that, during the past, it's still something that the world is feeling the effects of. Yeah, I had to, like, I'll show you now, but I had to change the stuff. So if I click the transition now, you'll see, yeah, you'll see like the intro. So I do apologize. Yeah, I just wanted to make it as good as I could for you guys. I just felt it deserved that. So I'm going to try and do these for these lore videos, you know, these types of small snippets of lore that can be cut down and re-listened to later, because I really want to do lore videos. I think that this is going to be, yeah, really nice. I didn't have time to pre-record this. I was going to pre-record it today, but I just didn't have the time, and I thought, you know what, forget it, let's just do a stream. It saves me editing, it gets you guys involved a bit, and it'll be nice, you know? So yeah, that was Dragonfall. I know it was a lot. There was a fair amount that you had to listen to there, so I completely understand if people tuned out partway through. But if you have any questions about that event, about how the dragons will now exist in a world that doesn't know how to accept them, I'm happy to answer anything that you have, because this is a big event. You know, this was something that happened, yeah, like a long time ago for the players in this. I saw your message. We'll do it live. I will try and set up the Nightbot so it doesn't just kill you guys every time. Like, it doesn't just Thanos snap you out every time you try and do something. But yeah. So we are looking good on that front. There are a few families, noble families, that were all Dragon Riders in the past. So during the time, they were like huge. You know, they were really, really powerful. That people would get really excited. People would get really sort of like go behind them in terms of anything that they did. They would follow them into war. They would do whatever they asked. To be fair, they protected a lot of families and a lot of villages. But with time, obviously, the Dragonfall ruined their families down. They were ripped apart, you know. They were at the bottom of the barrel after Dragonfall. They were not seen as anything more than, well, obviously, a lot of people theorized different things. So some people thought that the Dragon Riders were at fault here. So a lot of families lost their livelihoods because of these dragons, and so blamed the lineages, the noble families, that were Dragon Riders. Yeah, it's quite ridiculous. I have changed Nightbot now, so it shouldn't be as, you know, Thanos snappy every time you try and do something loud. So let me know if there's any issues, and I will do that again, but it's fine. Yeah, so Dragon Rider families were very, very big, but now they are less so. I think there's a few that I'm going to add to the book, because there's a few that I have ideas for. Aggressive is the word I was looking for, but I went Thanos snappy. It's fine. Yeah, so there's a lot of families that just lost everything. Since you said that they were sold, were there lines of dragons that no longer exist after the line events of Dragonfall? So the ones that you can see in the book are the ones that are currently out there. I can't speak to whether or not there are missing ones yet. I can't tell you which ones are extinct, because it's really deep lore, and I want you guys to experience that. And I want to keep some of them as a surprise. in case you guys ever get into it. But obviously you can see the connections between the 8 dragon families, or the families of dragons, and the lights within the Lightbearer symbols. So Aura dragons were primarily ridden by the Aura dancers. You got the Astral dragons, which were ridden by the Astral wardens, Pyre dragons, Pyre lords, Shard dragons, Shard keepers, you know. Yeah. So that's the connection that they have. The light returned, and with the light came the rebirth of these dragons. So yeah, that was that. So for now, that I will keep it close to the cards close to my chest, I think. Yeah. Yeah. What if dragon hybrids? Potentially. I'm not, again, a lot of people ask this during the campaign. It's not something I've got planned right now, but I'm keeping it in my mind for the future. I'll definitely look into it for something, because again, it's nice, right? It's nice to have dragon hybrids. You know, imagine a Pyre Storm dragon. Now that would be good. Like a Pyre Storm, oh my god. An Astral Moon dragon, like really good combos that you could have. So I will keep it in my mind. It's not something I've planned for this book because, again, there's so much in there already. I don't want to overwhelm players with like, hey, you can also have this. Yeah. Sun Mirror, wasn't that a thing in Dragon Ball? Which part specifically? Yeah. Gotta leave something for future expansion. I want to expand on this world a lot. I think there's a lot here that people will enjoy, and I don't want to give up the Ghost too soon because I also don't want to rush it, you know? Stuff like this requires the time that it deserves, you know? And I don't want to rush any of this to try and get it out quickly because then it won't be what I want. It will be basically what time allows me to do. Yeah, as you said, this is just the beginning. Exactly. The release of this book is the start of this entire journey, I think. The campaign was the prelude. This is going to be the beginning. So I'm really excited, to be honest. Who is it? Gohan and Trunks? The Nini pointy thing. Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah, Fusion Dance, yeah. It's Goku and Vegeta, and you've got Goten and Trunks who do it as well. Fusion Dance is probably what you're looking at. Yeah, so, I mean, we'll see, right? I don't want to promise anything right now because, again, I don't know what the future's going to hold, so we'll see. But, yeah. I think this stream will be a bit shorter than the others because I think what people wanted was just lore, and what people got was lore. So, I think what I'll do is end this one a bit early. It's going to be a tighter video for people. I'll take, I think, 3 more questions, and then we'll end it there, because I don't have much to go through in terms of lore at this point around Dragonfall. I think everything I wanted to say has been encapsulated into that little documentary that I made, because it was really fun. I really enjoyed writing that script. I really enjoyed putting the little title cards together, and I really enjoyed making all of this sort of like happen. Dev change. I'm not too sure what you mean, but yeah. Feel like I need to go watch the campaign videos. First stream I saw was the after party. I highly recommend going and seeing the others. They're not as deep as this one because there's a lot of, like, I mean, you're speaking directly to me, which is one. The other ones had Ruby in it as well, who's the lead of marketing here. So this one is more just direct to me. How long would Dragonfall section be in the books? I don't know, because it's a very big event, but also I'll say it's a couple of pages, just because Dragonfall doesn't require a lot of information because it's very clear what happened, and players just need to know the basic stuff. The Herald's Guide has a lot of detail on Dragonfall. And there is, I really want to do it, but I don't know if I have the time. I want to write a short story from the perspective of one of the soldiers who fought during Dragonfall. and let you guys read the experiences of someone directly. I don't know if I'll do it. If I was going to do it, I would just do it for fun, do it as a novella and put it up for free. But we'll see, because I do like writing this stuff. And writing that documentary was a lot of fun for me. So I might do it. Write a small little novella that takes you through the events of Dragonfall from a direct perspective. So yeah, that'll be cool. Oh, dev change. Okay, so a few things on the dev changes. There's not much that has changed at the minute. I'm writing the parts. Quick update on the parts. There are still going to be 20. They have not gone down in size, as I promised on Tuesday. The only thing that has changed is how they work within your character. So before, it used to be level 3. You pick a path and then get their things at each level. Doesn't work like that anymore. Instead, you can pick a path at any point. You must complete a quest before you become that path. So, for example, the Gravebound, you must attend the grave of someone that you have dishonored and make a pledge to them. Once you've done that, you get access to all of the path subclass, the path perks. There's about 10 per path. So they just replace your subclass list. So instead of, hey, I want to pick from one of 10 subclass perks at level 2, instead you get to pick from one of 20 subclass and path perks. So they just add into one pool. You just pick and choose what you want. Customization becomes a bit deeper and you get a lot more out of your choices. So suddenly you don't have a small amount, you have a big amount to pick from. I do worry a bit about it just being overwhelming for players. This is why I recommend parts be something you do on your second playthrough rather than your first, because they are big and they are very lore heavy. For example, the Grimswarden is a monster hunter requiring you to defeat a large beast. You're not gonna have done that in your first game, but you will be able to do that later. You also get a signature perk from each path. That is completely separate. You don't choose what that is, you just get one. So, for example, the Grimswarden, you get a perk that says when you defeat a certain type of monster, currently it's demon, aberration, or beast, you'll get a material from them that you can graft onto yourself and then gain an ability from their stat block. So it becomes really, really cool once you deepen into it. Not a Dragonfall question per se. I don't know if you want to count this towards the 3, but if we have the add-on, would everything be included from the equivalent tier, or should we just late pledge for that? If you added Throne of Luster, either physical or digital, you only get that specific thing. So if you ordered physical, you get the physical edition, or the Lux edition if you pledge for that, and the ebook and the audiobook when that releases. If you just pledge on the ebook, you just get the ebook and the audiobook. If you want all the extra stuff, late pledging for Throne of Luster is going to be the way to go. We will be opening proper pre-orders for that later, where it will basically be like a store. That's not open yet. Late pledging, just all you have to do is go in, click the drop down of the tier you want, and enter your email. You've late pledged. You don't take any money just yet. I charge that later, but the pledge manager will be open to you, and you will basically be considered a backer, so you get all the stuff that backers get. So stickers, blah blah blah, all that extra stuff. But yeah, so I've had 1, 2. I guess technically that's 3. I'll take one more, and then we'll. I'm not going to count more stickers. There are going to be. There's stickers in that one. Graph like crafting. We'll have to wait for that item stream. I'd say grafting is less like a crafting system and more just, hey, I've defeated the Shard Wolf. I'm going to lob a bit off and graft it onto my armor. Suddenly you've just got shards on your armor and you gain, I don't know, +2 defense or something. I'm trying to take some inspiration from Heliana's Guide to Monster Hunting for that, but I don't want to overwhelm this. That is not what this book is about. This is not a be everything type of game. I have very specific visions for this. So I don't want to overwhelm anyone with stuff like that. So like Monster Hunter, exactly. That's the vision. The Grimswarden is a mix between the Dragoon from Final Fantasy, Witchers, and Monster Hunter. Okay. I think that's it. I think we've covered off everything that I would with Dragonfall at this point. I would love to know in the Discord if you guys enjoyed this sort of style of video, where it had the intro and it had the little title cards and the documentary style of script, because I really enjoyed writing it and I'd love to do more. But if you didn't enjoy it and would rather it just be question and answer, I can do that too. I think this is better for chunks of content, but I also understand if it's just too much for people to sit there and listen for 30 minutes of me yapping about a piece of history from a world that I created. I get it. So let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think in the Discord. That is where I'm going to be most active. And yeah, if you join the Discord, you'll actually be able to vote on what next week's stream is going to be. It will be on Tuesday this time. I'm not just going to do a sudden stream on Saturday, don't worry. I'll do another one on Tuesday. If I have time, I will do a second one as well. That might be lore related. So I'm thinking one mechanic, one lore. I think because everyone wants lore, I don't want to stop lore being a potential thing. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Cool. Well, thank you everyone for taking the time out of your day, out of your work day, to come and sit and listen to me. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate the effort that you guys have put into taking part in the Discord, and I really am excited to see what happens next. So we'll put a poll inside the Discord. If you haven't joined the Discord, you can use the link here and join the Discord. It is a lovely community of people. You'll be able to ask all things. I will try and do Lore Thursdays. I don't want to promise it because I don't want to put myself into a hole of, oh, will you promise Thursdays? I'll see. If I can do it, I'd love to. If I can't, then, you know, nothing, you know, no love lost at that point. I can just do it another day. But I love this. And I think what I might do is Lore Thursdays are shorter, but the main streams are about an hour and a bit. That way, everything gets covered in the mainstream, and you guys are getting some lore on Thursdays. But we'll see how that happens. I'll try this schedule for a few weeks and just try and practice it out, because if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So, with that said, thank you all. I love you all. You have been amazing, and I will see you all in the Discord, or I'll see you in the next stream. Have a wonderful day. Have a fantastic weekend, and I will catch you all on Tuesday.